Hello viewers and my dear students. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Zahida Begum Sheikh, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Government Degree College, Hayatnagar. Today I am going to discuss about the very important and huge topic, Indian judiciary system. It's a part of our life because as a citizen of India, everyone should know obey the law. We should feel proud that India only the country which following independence of judiciary system. So just move on the introduction topic. So in introduction of the judiciary system, judiciary, legislature and executive are the three branches of state. In India, we have an independent judiciary as I discussed earlier. The other organs of the government cannot interfere with the functioning of the judiciary. The judiciary is that branch of the government that interprets law, settles disputes, and administers justice to all citizens. The judiciary is considered the watchdog of democracy and also the guardian of the constitution. For democracy to function effectively, it is imperative to have an impartial and independent judiciary. The Indian judicial system is one of the oldest legal systems in the world today. The framework of the current legal systems has been laid down by the Indian Constitution and the judicial system derives its powers from it. The Constitution of India is the supreme law of the country, the fountain source of law in India. Just move on our next slide, that is the historical background or the history of Indian judiciary or Indian law. Ancient India has had a sort of legal system during the Bronze Age and the Indus Valley civilization. The evolution of Indian law may be classified as that during the Vedic period, the Islamic period, and the British period and post independence also. The Ardhashastra 400 BC and the Manusmriti 1000 AD were considered as the authoritative legal guidance in India. But with the arrival of British Raj system, Hindu and Islamic law were abolished for introducing British common law system in India. So, the primary sources of law is customs, legislatures, and ordinance, and secondary sources of law is common law, law of merchants, and case laws. So, just move on our next slide. It's about the role of judiciary. Rule of law implies that all individuals, rich and poor, men or women, forward or backward castes, are subjected to the same law. Judiciary protects rule of law and ensures supremacy of law. It safeguards rights to the individuals and settles the disputes in accordance with the law, and it ensures that democracy. So, what is the independence of judiciary, or what is the meaning of independence of judiciary? It means that the other branches of the government, namely the executive and the legislature, does not interfere with the judiciary functioning of the judiciary. The judiciary's decision is respected and not interfered with by the other organs. It also means that judges can perform their duties without fear or favor. Independence of judiciary also does not mean that the judiciary functions arbitrarily and without any accountability. It is accountable to the constitution of the country only. So, just focus on our next slide, that is how is it ensured, or how is the judiciary's independence provided for? The constitution provides for a number of provisions that ensure that the independence of the judiciary is maintained and protected. How is it ensured that independence of judiciary. The constitution has many provisions to ensure, like security of tenure. Number 1, it means in detail the judge of the Supreme Court are given security of tenure. Once appointed, they will retain their office until the age of 65 years. They can be removed only by a presidential order on grounds of proven misbehavior and or incapability or incapacity. This requires a special majority according to Article 368. Number 2, salaries and allowances. The judges of the Supreme Court enjoy good salaries and allowances, and these cannot be decreased except in the case of financial emergency. The expenses of the High Court are charged on the consolidated fund of the state, which is not subject to vote in the state legislature. And number 3, powers and jurisdiction. The Supreme Court powers and jurisdiction can only be added by the Parliament and not be curtailed. And number 4, the conduct of any judge of the Supreme Court in the discharge of his or her duties cannot be discussed in the legislature. And number 5, the Supreme Court has the power to punish any person for its contempt as per Article 129. And number 6, separation of the judiciary from the executive. A direct principle of the state policy says that the state shall take steps to separate the judiciary from the executive in the public services of the state. According to Article 50, there shall be a separate judicial service free from executive control. In detail or in summarize all these detailed points, just as judges are appointed by the President of India and they enjoy a fixed tenure, and removal is through a difficult process of impeachment. It is financially independent, and actions and decisions of the judges are immune from personal criticisms, and power to penalize contempt of court, and Parliament cannot discuss the conduct of the judges. So just focus on our next slide, that is Indian judicial system. The three-tiered system of Indian judiciary comprises the Supreme Court at its helm, High Court standing at the head of state judicial systems, followed by district and sessions court in the judicial districts into which the states are divided. The lower rung of the system then comprises the courts of civil and criminal jurisdiction. That is, civil means civil judges and criminal judicial or metropolitan magistrates jurisdiction. Besides, a number of judicial tribunals have been set up in specialized areas. The significant tribunals are Company Law Board, Security Appellate Tribunal, and Competition Commission of India, that is CCI, and Consumer Protection Forum, and Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, and Customs and Excise Control Tribunal, and Tax Tribunal, etc. So just focus on this slide, that is the functions of the judiciary in India. Number 1, administration of justice. The chief function of the judiciary is to apply the law to specific cases or in settling disputes. When a dispute is brought before the courts, it determines the facts involved through evidence presented by the contestants. The law then proceeds to decide what law is applicable to the case and applies it. If someone is found guilty of violating the law in the course of the trial, the court will impose a penalty on the guilty person. Number 2, creation of judges or creation of judge case law. In many cases, the judges are not able to or find it difficult to select the appropriate law for application. In such cases, the judges decides what the appropriate law is on the basis of their wisdom and common sense. In doing so, judges have built up a great body of judgment law or case law. As per the doctrine of stare decisis, the previous decisions of the judges are generally regarded as binding on later judges in similar cases. Number 3, guardian of the constitution. The highest court in India, that is the Supreme Court, acts as the guardian of the constitution. The conflicts of the jurisdiction between the central government and the state governments, or between the legislature and the executive, are decided by the court. Any law or executive order which violates any provision of the constitution is declared unconstitutional and null and void by the judiciary. This is called judicial review. We will discuss later. Judicial review has the merit of guaranteeing the fundamental rights of the individuals and ensuring a balance between the union and the units of a federal state. Number 4, protector of fundamental rights. The judiciary ensures that the people's rights are not tampered or trampled upon by the state or any other agency. The superior courts enforce fundamental rights by issuing writs, etc. Issuing writs, judicial activism, and judicial review also. So, and next, number 5, that is very important, supervisory functions. The higher courts also perform the function of supervising the subordinate courts in India. And number 6, advisory functions, that is the Supreme Court of India performs an advisory function as well. It can give its advisory opinions on constitutional questions. This is done in the absence of disputes and when the executive so desires. And number 7, administrative functions. Some functions of the courts are non-judicial or administrative in nature. The courts may grant certain licenses, administer the estates of deceased persons, and appointment receivers. They register marriages, appoint guardians of minor children and lunatics. And number 8, special role in a federation. In a federal system like India, the judiciary also performs the important task of the settling disputes between the center and states. It also acts an arbitrator of disputes between states. And number 9, conducting judicial inquiries. Judges normally are called to head commissions that inquire into cases of errors of omissions on the part of public servants. And also functions at civil courts, like civil courts deal with the civil cases. Civil law is referred to in almost all cases other than criminal cases. Criminal law applies when a crime such as robbery, murder, arson, etc. is perpetrated. And next one, civil law is applied in disputes when one person sues another person or entity. Examples of civil cases include divorce, eviction, consumer problems, debt or bankruptcy, etc. So, judges in civil courts and criminal courts have different powers. While a judge in a criminal court can punish the convicted person by sending him or her to jail, a judge in a civil court can make the guilty pay fines, etc. So, and also district judges sitting in district courts and magistrates of second class and civil judge, that is junior division, are at the bottom of the judicial hierarchy in India. The court of the district judges is the highest civil court in a district. It is both administrative and judicial powers. The court of the district judge is in the district headquarters. It can try criminal and civil cases, and hence the judges is called the district and sessions judge. Under the district courts there are courts of sub-judge, additional sub-judge at municipal courts. Most civil cases filed in municipal courts. So, these civil courts have 4 types of jurisdiction functions. That is subject matter jurisdiction. It can try cases of a particular type and relating to a particular subject. And territorial jurisdiction, it can try cases within its geographical limit and not beyond the territory. Pecuniary jurisdiction, that is cases related to money matters, suits of monetary value. Appellate jurisdiction, this is the authority of a court to hear appeals or reviews a case that has already been decided by a lower court. The Supreme Court and the High Courts have appellate jurisdictions to hear cases that were decided by a lower court. So, as this discussion about the function of the judiciary, if we see in a nutshell, Supreme Court of India, its decisions are binding on all courts, can transfer judges of high courts, can move cases from any court to itself, and can transfer cases from one high court to another. And next, high court can hear, high court function is can hear approach appeals from lower court, can issue writs to restore fundamental rights, and can deal with cases within the jurisdiction of the state, and exercises superintendence of control over courts. And the district court function is mainly deals with cases arising in the district, considers appeal on the decision given by the lower courts, and decides cases involving serious criminal and subordinate court functions are consider cases of civil and criminal nature. So this is the all about the functions of the judiciary in India. Just move on our next slide, that is judiciary structure. Judiciary system or the court system is also the judiciary system. The court has the power to make decisions and also enforce the law and solve disputes. Judiciary system consists of judges and other magistrates. They form the bench or the core of the judiciary system. India has a single integrated judiciary system. The judiciary in India has a pyramidal structure with the Supreme Court at the top, high courts are below. Just focus on this slide. Supreme Court at the top, high courts are below the Supreme Court, and below them the district and subordinate courts, the lower courts, function under the direct superintendence of the higher courts. So, the structure, apart from this structure, there are also two branches of the legal system which are criminal law. These deal with the committing of a crime by any citizen or entity. A criminal case starts when the local police files a crime report. The court finally decides on the matter. And civil law, these deals with the disputes over the violation of the fundamental rights of a citizen. To know more about the apex court in India, that is the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court has three types of jurisdiction: the original, appellate, and advisory. We will detail discuss in next slide. And the judiciary system or the India, the court has the power to make decisions and also enforce the law. That is, they form the bench of the core of the judiciary system. On 26 January 1950, the Indian Constitution was written, and it is world's largest constitution written. The Constitution is the source of law in India and also the supreme law of India. Judicial system of India consists of, that is, I already discussed, Supreme Court and High Court and District Court. Just move on our next slide about the Supreme Court. It came into being on 28th January 1950. Under the Constitution of India, the Supreme Court is the final court of appeal. Hence has the Chief Justice of India, including 30 judges and other judges for advisory jurisdiction. Unsolved or still in a dispute cases are levelled up to Supreme Court to retain justice. If the Supreme Court declares a law, it is binding on all other courts of all states and union territory. Every court building has 15 courtrooms. The eligibility to become a Chief Justice is the judge in one high court or more for at least 5 years or advocate in High Court for at least 10 years. A distinguished judge in the opinion of the President of India and the Supreme Court. The judges of the Supreme Court at the time of inauguration were Chief Justice Harilal in the time of 28th January 1950. At that time, the inauguration were Chief Justice Harilal J. Kania and Justices Sajid Fazal Ali and M. Patanjali Shastri and Meher Chand Mahajan, Bijan Kumar Mukherjee and S.R. Das. The first Attorney General for India was Mr. M.C. Setalvad. The Supreme Court of India comprises the Chief Justice and not more than 30 other judges appointed by the President of India. The proceedings of the Supreme Court are conducted in English only. The registry of the Supreme Court is headed by the Registrar General. So, term length is age of 65 years. Constituting instrument is Constitution of India under Article 124. Formation is 1950. First holder Justice H.J. Kania. Final holder Sandeep. And the Supreme Court of India Chief Justice is hold office till the age of 65. So the process of appointment of judges is appointed by President in India, citizen of India, and High Court judge for at least 5 years or High Court advocate at least 10 years. What is the process of removal? Article 1244 of Constitution of India lays down the procedure for removal of a judge of Supreme Court, which is applicable to Chief Justice as well. He can be removed only through a process of impeachment by Parliament. A judge of the Supreme Court shall not be removed from his office except by an order of the President passed after an address by each House of Parliament supported by a majority of the total membership of that House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of that House present, and voting has been presented to the President in the same session for such removal on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity. Article 124(4) Constitution of India. So, Supreme Court's jurisdiction. Original jurisdictions, that is disputes between state and center, and writ jurisdiction on violation of fundamental rights and public interest litigation. Appellate jurisdiction, that is regular appeals from High Court decisions and special leave petitions. And also the power jurisdiction, that is power to review its own judgment, power to review the judgment passed in a review, and advisory jurisdiction on presidential reference. Apart from this, he has acting president also. The Constitution of India provides that the Chief Justice of India shall act as the President of India in the event of the offices of both the President and the Vice President being vacant. When President Zakir Hussain died in office, the Vice President V.V. Giri acted as the President. Later, Mr. Giri resigned as the Vice President. The CJ, Chief Justice of India, Justice Hidayatullah, then became the acting President of India. The senior most judge of the Supreme Court became the acting Chief Justice of India. When the newly elected President took office a month later, Justice Hidayatullah reverted as Chief Justice of India. And the remuneration, also the Constitution of India gives the power to deciding remuneration as well as other conditions of service of the Chief Justice to the Parliament of India. Accordingly, such provisions have been laid down in the Supreme Court judges, and that is Salaries and Conditions of Service Act 1958. The 6th Central Pay Commission recommended revision in the salaries and other allowances and pensionary benefits of the central government employees, including the High Court and Supreme Court judges and all India services. The government has accepted the majority of recommendations of the commission and issued orders. And he is acted as guardian of the constitution. Supreme Court enjoys the privileges of protecting the constitution against violation of its provisions either by government or by the people. It acts as the watchtower of the constitution and also exercises the power of interpreting the contents of constitution. If we focus on other miscellaneous um, jurisdictions also, that is transfer of cases, appeals from one high court to another, withdrawal of cases from high court, and precedent law declared by Supreme Court binding of all courts, that is article 141, and article 142 doing complete justice, rule making power and interpretation of the constitution, power of judicial review. If we take one example, major cases, that is Indira Gandhi versus Rajnarayan in 1975, Indira Gandhi declared emergency after being ordered by the Allahabad High Court to vacate her seat for malpractice. The Supreme Court later overturned the decision. And one more famous case, that is Nota 2016, that right to negative vote. In this case, on October 14, the Supreme Court recognized the right to negative vote for the electoral in the country. The voters will now have a none of the above option if they don't feel that the candidate deserve a vote. Negative voting will lead the systemic change in polls, and political parties will be forced to project clean candidates. If the right to vote is a statutory right, then the right to reject candidate is a fundamental right of speech and expression under the Constitution, the court said. So, we will discuss, and I am going to discuss the major case about Jayalalitha, that is disproportionate asset case against Jayalalitha. Jayalalitha Jayaram, commonly referred to as Jayalalitha, is an Indian politician who is former Chief Minister Tamil Nadu, convicted for misusing her office during her tenure of 1996 to amass properties worth 66.65 crores. The assets under the purview of the case are the farmhouses and bungalows in Chennai, agricultural land in Tamil Nadu, a farmhouse in Hyderabad, a tea estate in the Nilgiris, and valuable jewelry, industrial sheds, cash deposits, and investments in banks, and investments and a set of luxury cars. A raid on her Poise Garden residence in 1997 recovered 800 kg silver, 28 kg gold, and 750 pairs of shoes, and 10,500 saris, and 91 watches, and other valuable, as you all know. The valuable were kept in a vault in Reserve Bank of India in Chennai. The opposition party petitions the request or to request the court to take the control of the assets, but the special judge John Michael Cunha, who inspected the assets on January 2014, ordered the assets to be transferred to Bangalore. The judgment of the case was pronounced on 27th September 2014 in the special court, which convicted all four, including Jayalalitha, guilty. Jayalalitha was sentenced to 4 years simple imprisonment under sections 13(1)(e) and 13(2) of the Prevention of Corruption Act, and impose a fine of 100 crores, which would be adjusted against the properties already confiscated. So, this is the major cases about the Supreme Court's jurisdiction, and we'll discuss on the High Courts. Under the Constitution of India, every state should regard to one High Court. Mumbai High Court, ID the oldest High Court in India. Every High Court has 94 judges, out of which 71 are permanent and 23 are additional judges. High Court deals with economic issues and legal documentation. These courts also have an additional set of legal professionals. Eligibility for a High Court judge is he should be a citizen of India. An advocate should have at least 10 years of practice in any court. High courts are generally the last court of regular appeal. It has the power to supervise the subordinate courts falling within the territorial jurisdiction. The high courts are courts of record. The High Court hears first appeals from the decisions of the district courts. On the criminal side, the High Court has to confirm all sentences of death passed by courts of sessions and hear references in this behalf. High Court hears criminal appeals for convictions awarded by sessions judges and additional session judges or from the judgment of any other court where a sentence for more than 7 years imprisonment has been passed. So, if you focus on list of high courts in India, High Court Allahabad and High Court of Judicature at Hyderabad, Bombay High Court, Calcutta and Chhattisgarh High Court, Delhi High Court, Guwahati High Court, Gujarat High Court, Himachal Pradesh High Court, Jammu Kashmir High Court and Jharkhand High Court and Karnataka High Court and Kerala High Court, Madhya Pradesh High Court, Madras High Court and Manipur, Orissa, Meghalaya, Patna, Punjab and Haryana Combined High Court and Rajasthan High Court, Sikkim High Court, Tripura High Court and Uttarakhand High Court and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh Combined High Court. It's at Hyderabad. So, High Courts focus on High Court's jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is company matters, civil cases of particular monetary amount, writ jurisdiction and public interest litigation. Appellate jurisdiction, regular appeals in civil and criminal matters from the decisions of the district courts, and confirmation jurisdiction. So, the subordinate courts we will discuss later. Before going to subordinate courts, what is writ? Just focus on this slide. Writs are issued by Supreme Court under Article 32 and by the High Court under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. Writs, first of all, what is the writ? Writs are a written order from Supreme Court or High Court that commands constitutional remedies for Indian citizens against the violation of their fundamental rights. Article 32 in the Indian Constitution deals with constitutional remedies that an Indian citizen can seek from the Supreme Court and High Court against the violation of his or her fundamental rights. The same article gives the Supreme Court power to issue writs for the enforcement of rights, whereas the High Court has the same power under Article 226. The writs habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto and prohibition. Types of writs in India. Supreme Court of India is the defender of the fundamental rights of the citizens. For that, it has original and wide powers. It issues 5 kinds of writs in India: habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari and quo warranto. Aspirants means the habeas corpus. The Latin meaning of the word is habeas corpus is to have the body of. The writ is used to enforce the fundamental rights of individual liberty against unlawful detention. And through habeas corpus, Supreme Court, High Court ordered one person who has arrested other person to bring the body of the latter before the court. And facts about habeas corpus in India. Supreme Court or High Court can issue the writ against both private and public authorities. Habeas corpus cannot be issued in the following cases, that is, when detention is lawful, or when the proceedings is for contempt of a legislature or a court, and detention is by a competent court, and detention is outside the jurisdiction of the court. And next one, that is mandamus. It literal meaning of this writ. kindly concentrate. These writs are very important for our competition exams. So not only political science, all the competitive preparing for competitive exams students are, please kindly focus and listen carefully. So the second one is mandamus. The literal meaning of this writ is we command. This writ is used by the court to order the public official who has failed to perform his duty or refused to do his duty to resume his work. Besides public official, mandamus can be issued against any public body, a corporation, an inferior court, a tribunal, or government for the same purpose. And facts about mandamus in India also. Unlike habeas corpus, mandamus cannot be issued against a private individual. Mandamus cannot be issued in the following cases, that is to enforce departmental instructions that does not possess statutory force, and to order someone to work when the kind of work is discretionary and not mandatory, to enforce a contractual obligation. And mandamus can't be issued against Indian president or state governors, and against the chief justice of a high court acting in a judicial capacity. And next move on our prohibition. The literal meaning of prohibition is to forbid. A court which is higher in position issues prohibition writ against a court which is lower in a position to prevent the latter from exceeding its jurisdiction of usurping a jurisdiction that is it does not possess. It directs inactivity. Facts about prohibition in India. Writ of prohibition can only be issued against judicial and quasi judicial authorities. It can't be issued against administrative authorities and legislative bodies and private individuals or bodies. And next we move on certiorari. The literal meaning of the writ of certiorari is to be certified or to be informed. The writ is against issued by a court higher in authority to a lower court or tribunal, ordering them either to transfer a case pending with them to itself or to squash their order in a case. It is issued on the grounds of an excess of jurisdiction or lack of jurisdiction or error of law. It, it not only prevents but also cures for the mistakes in the judiciary. Facts about certiorari in India. Pre 91, the writ of certiorari used to be issued only against judicial and quasi judicial authorities and not against administrative authorities. Post 1991, Supreme Court ruled that the certiorari can be issued even against administrative authorities affecting the rights of individuals. It cannot be issued against legislative bodies and private individuals or bodies. And next move on quo warranto. So the literal meaning of the writ of quo warranto is by what authority or warrant. Supreme Court or High Court issue this writ to prevent illegal usurpation of a public office by a person. Through this writ, the court inquires into a legality of claim of a person to a public office. Facts about quo warranto in India. Quo warranto can be issued only the substantive public office of a permanent character created by a statute or by the constitution is involved. It can't be against private or the minister office. That is one note please. The writ gives the right to seek redressal to any individual other than the aggrieved person. So general facts about writs in India. Article 32 also empowers Parliament to authorize at any other court to issue these rights. Before 1950, only the High Courts of Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras had the power to issue the writs. Article 226 empowers all the High Courts of India to issue the writs. Writs of India are borrowed from the English law, where they are known as prerogative writs. And most important about this writs in one sentence is special orders issued in cases involving the violation of fundamental rights. So, we already discussed the types of writs. So, just focus on our most important and very crucial part of this judiciary, that is judicial activism. Guarding judges appoints from the executive to ensure independence and guardian of the weak and vulnerable, that is protection of women from harassment at workplace, principle of reservation upheld, ensuring health and food and education to the children, and safeguarding the soul of the constitution, the doctrine of basic structure. So, now just move on and focus on very important topic of the judiciary system, that is nothing but judicial review. It is very important for political science, not only political science, all the competitive, all the who preparing the competitive exam students also. This is very important and very um, keen observation topic, that is judicial review. Judicial review is defined as the doctrine under which executive and legislative actions are reviewed by the judiciary. Even though we have in India the principle of separation of powers of the three arms of state, that is namely the executive, the legislative and the judiciary. The judiciary is vested with the power of review over action of the other two arms, that is executive and legislature. Judicial review is considered a basic structure of the constitution. We already discussed that case, that is Indira Gandhi versus Rajnarayan case, and that is the judicial review is considered a basic structure of the constitution. And judicial review is the power of the courts to consider the constitutionality of acts of organs of government and declare it unconstitutional if it violates or is inconsistent with the basic principles of the constitution. This means that the power of legislature to make laws is not absolute, and that the validity of constitutionality of such laws are subject to review by the courts. Judicial review is also called the interpretational and observer roles of the Indian judiciary. Suo motu cases and the public interest litigations with the discontinuation of the principle of locus standi have allowed the judiciary to intervene in many public issues even when there is no complaint from the aggrieved party. Judicial review and constitutional, according to Article 13(2), the union or the states shall not make any law that takes away or abridges any of the fundamental rights, and any law in contravention of the aforementioned mandate shall, to the extent of the contravention, be void. So, judicial review is called upon to ensure the protect fundamental rights which are guaranteed in Part 3 of the Constitution. The power of the Supreme Court of India to enforce these rights is derived from Article 32 of the Constitution. This provides citizens the rights to directly approach the Supreme Court to seek remedies against the violation of fundamental rights. So, judicial review classification, we can classify judicial review into three categories. They are reviews of legislative actions. This review implies the power to ensure that laws passed by the legislature are in compliance with the provisions of the Constitution. Second one, review of administrative actions. This is a tool for enforcing constitutional discipline over administrative agencies while exercising their powers. And third one, review of judicial decisions. This is seen in the Golaknath case, bank nationalization case, and Minerva Mills case, and Privy Purse abolition case, etc. Examples of judicial review: IT Act Section 66A in 2015, the Supreme Court struck down Section 66A of the Amended Information Technology Act 2000. It is very important act, that's why I am discussing. Please kindly focus on. This provided the punishment for sending offensive messages through a computer or any other communication device like a mobile phone or a tablet, etc., or a mobile. A conviction could fetch a maximum of 3 years in jail and a fine. This was repealed by the Supreme Court on the grounds that the section fell outside Article 19(2) of the Constitution, which relates the freedom of speech. And if we discuss the important case, Golaknath case 1967, the questions in this case were whether amendment is a law and whether fundamental rights can be amended or not. Supreme Court contended the fundamental rights are not amenable to the parliamentary restriction as stated in Article 13, and that to amend the fundamental rights a new constitution assembly would be required. Also stated that Article 368 gives the procedure to amend the power to amend the constitution, but does not confer on Parliament power to amend the Constitution. This case is also sometimes cited the examples of judicial activism. Limitation of judicial review. There are some limitations on the judiciary on exercising its power of judicial review. In fact, when the judiciary crosses its threshold and interferes in the executive's mandate, it can be called judicial activism, which when furthered can lead to judicial overreach. Some of the limitations of judicial review are mentioned, that is, it is only permissible to the extent of finding if the procedure in reaching the decision has been correctly followed but not the decision itself, and it is designated only to the higher courts like the Supreme Court and the high courts. The judiciary cannot interfere in political questions and policy matters unless absolutely necessary. So, if we focus about what is the purpose of judicial review, the purpose of judicial review is to make sure that laws passed by the legislature are not unconstitutional. It is also used to enforce constitutional discipline over administrative agencies. If you focus on these type of questions related to judicial review, that is judicial review mentioned in Indian Constitution? The judicial review is not mentioned in the Indian Constitution. However, it provides for the concept of judicial review. And one more question, in recently we saw that civils paper, that is, what is the difference between judicial review and the writ? Writs are issued by the higher courts upon violation of fundamental rights, whereas judicial review is the power of the court to review and validate laws passed. So, can high courts do judicial review? The High Court can exercise judicial review in addition to administrate control over the lower courts within its limits. So, just move on our next slide, that is the subordinate courts or district judiciary or district courts of India. Under the Constitution of India, district courts or subordinate courts are subordinate to the High Court. District courts are established according to the population of distribution of the district and state. It looks after the civil and criminal matters of the district. A law declared by the district court is applicable to all subordinate courts. Since district courts is at a higher hierarchical level, eligibility of judge in a district court is he should be citizen of India. An advocate should have at least practice of 7 years. The district courts of India are established by state governments in India for every district or one or more districts together, taking into account the number of cases, population distribution in the district. The administered justice in India at a district level. So, the district court is presided over the district judge. by one district judge only. In addition to the district judge, there may be the number of additional district judges and assistant district judges depending on the workload. These courts are under administrative control of the High Court of the state to which the district concerned belongs. The decisions of district court are subject to the appellate jurisdiction of the concerned High Court. So, appointment of district and judge and other additional and assistant district judges is done by the state government in consultation with the High Court of the state. A minimum 7 years of practice as a lawyer, as already I discussed. District judge are also appointed by way of elevation of judge from courts subordinate to district courts provided they fulfill the minimum years of service. So there are so many district courts in Andhra Pradesh, Union Territories like Chhattisgarh 1, Dadra Nagar Haveli 1, Andhra Pradesh 23, Chhattisgarh 16, Goa 2, like that. And we just move on, that is the village courts. Village courts called Lok Adalat means people's courts or Nyaya Panchayat or justice of village compose a system of alternative dispute resolution and traditionally known as palm tree justice. Dispute resolution by village elderly has existed since times immemorial at the village level. Conferment of special status by the constitution, adjudicating petty criminal and civil disputes. And just move on our Lok Adalats. Lok Adalat is a system of alternative dispute resolution developed in India. It roughly means people's court. The system of Lok Adalat is based on the principles of the Panch Parameshwar of Gram Panchayats, which were also proposed by Mahatma Gandhi. The idea of Lok Adalat was mainly advocated by Justice P. N. Bhagavati, a former Chief Justice of India. They are held periodically from exercising such jurisdiction as they determine. The first Lok Adalat was held on March 14, 1918 in Gujarat. The disputing parties plead their case themselves in Lok Adalats. Witnesses are not examined, no court fees is levied, speedy justice is given to the peoples to all classes of society. It was the Legal Services Authority Act 1987 which gave statutory status of the Lok Adalats. So, just focus on our next slide, that is special courts for better justice. Special courts to deal with offences against women known as Mahila courts. Family courts for disputes relating to marriage, divorce, guardianship. Fast track courts to deal with sexual offences against women. Special courts for poor and juvenile. Special courts for socio-economic offences such corruption, food adulteration, checkbones cases. Tribunalization for instance tax tribunal, green tribunal, electricity tribunal, labor tribunal, and as I discussed that now Lok Adalats and also evening courts. So just focus on our next slide, that is quasi judicial system. This appendage to the Indian judicial system is a recent and sincere attempt on the part of the government to expedite the judicial process through dilution of procedural formalities and avoidance of litigation. Tribunal forms an indispensable part of this system, which are appointed by the government and comprise of judges and experts on the particular field for which the tribunal has been constituted. And recent trends in law. Criminal Procedure Code. Plea bargaining in Criminal Procedure Code. Plea bargaining is introduced in India by Criminal Law Amendment Act 2005. This affects cases in which the maximum punishment is imprisonment for 7 years. However, offences affecting the socio-economic condition of the country and offences committed against a woman or a child below the age of 14 are excluded. So, recent trends in law. Civil Procedure Code 1908 or 1908. Mediation and conciliation encouraged. Number of adjournments and service of summons by other means, evidence by way of affidavits, and time limit for pronounced judgments. And new trends in judiciary. Computerization of courts, as you all know, and scope of public interest litigation is being limited, and judiciary has become more open, and concept of justice at doorstep encouraged, and lok adalas, special courts to dispose of petty cases, and evening courts started in many states. The latest in Indian law: improvised court or case and docket management and alternative dispute resolution, that is arbitration, mediation, conciliation, and plea bargaining, legal aid, increasing insistence on reformation and rehabilitation in sentencing, and computerization of courts, e-courts, e-court fee and stamping. And some more important points you kindly focus, that is, are you aware of that? That is, about two-thirds of our laws have not been used in independent India. About 10% of them can be scrapped right away, and most of the 10% in use currently have so many obsolete and conflicting provisions. The oldest law in the country has been in operation for over a century and a half. The one sentence 1836 Bengal District Act empowers the Bengal government to increase as many zillas as it wants. The act still exists. And under the Indian Sarais Act 1867, it is a punishable offence for innkeepers not to offer free drinking water to passers-by. Only about 40% of our laws are in regular use. Independent India has till now found no conceivable use for the rest. While India badly needs efficient laws, the time spent by the lawmaking body on the job is unbelievably little. Parliament spends lawmaking less than 0.6% of a Lok Sabha day on lawmaking. And what is the challenges that our Indian judiciary system facing? Overburdening of courts, exactly, shortage of manpower and shortage of infrastructure, and delay in disposal, frivolous adjournments, and non appearance of parties. So we will just move on our next slide, that is the conclusion part. Till now I discussed about, that is, what is the Indian judiciary system, and we discussed introduction, and we discussed history of Indian law and role of judiciary, and we discussed independence of judiciary, how is it ensured, and Indian judicial system, and Indian judicial system's work, and the functions of the judiciary in India, and judiciary structure, and types of courts in India, and hierarchy of courts, and we focus on all types and small all district level and municipal courts also, and we discussed detailedly the Supreme Court, appointment of judges and Supreme Court's jurisdiction, and we discussed the removal of judge, that is impeachment, and the high courts, and the high court appointment of high court judges and high court jurisdiction, and we detailedly discussed about writs and judicial activism, judicial review, and subordinate courts, that is district judiciary, and the functions of district courts, and the appointment of district judges, and special courts for better justice, and we discuss about village courts, and that is Nyaya Panchayat, Lok Adalat, and also we discuss quasi judicial system and recent trends in the law, and criminal procedure code and civil procedure code, and new trends in judiciary, and we discuss the latest also, and we discuss some points that related to our awareness, and we discuss the challenges. Now I conclude my session with this small conclusion, that is, from an artificial of the colonial masters, the Indian legal system has evolved as an essential ingredient of the world's largest democracy and a crucial front in the battle to secure constitutional rights for every citizen. So hope you all enjoyed my session. So next session I will come up with interesting topic. Don't miss my session. Until then, thank you one and all.